Good morning. My name is Evan Marshall. I'm the Senior Engagement Officer at the Geological Survey of Queensland, and welcome to GSQ's flagship event, Digging Deeper. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we commence. The bathrooms, straight through those doors and off to your right. Grab some fresh air if you like at the break time, straight behind you on the terrace, and there's also some allocated smoking areas. Should there be the need for an evacuation, head out through the exit doors and we'll assemble across at South Bank TAFE. But yeah, welcome today. Today is being recorded, so if there's time for questions in between presentations, can I ask that you please use the microphone so that they can be captured as well, and we'll provide a link a few days afterwards. Please note also there'll be a few communication staff milling around, taking photos and capturing the event. If you don't want your photo taken, please let us know and we'll take note of that. In the foyer, you may have seen a collection of posters from students and postdocs. Can I ask that you spend some time at morning tea and particularly at lunch having a look at those posters? We really want to encourage the next wave of geologists coming through, and we do have prizes for the top student posters, so we'll be doing some voting at lunchtime as well. So please spend the time to read the posters and speak with the authors, and we want to celebrate that next wave of geologists coming through the industry. There's a strong contingent of GSQ staff here today, most of which are wearing black shirts like myself. Please speak with us at any time if we can provide any further assistance for you. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Duncan Kerslake. Duncan will be providing the Acknowledgement of Country today. I was first privileged to meet Duncan in 2017 when he and I worked together on the Gold Coast 2018 Commonwealth Games. Duncan is a proud Aboriginal man of Palawa heritage, and earlier this year, Duncan was awarded the Public Service Medal in the Australia Honours List for outstanding service to the development and advancement of Queensland's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses. I've seen firsthand the tremendous benefit and impact Duncan's work brings to First Nations businesses through the creation of jobs, economic wealth, and broad benefit for community, which is why I'm thrilled Duncan's agreed to come back again to deliver today's Acknowledgement of Country. Please join with me in welcoming Duncan to the stage.
Yapulanjina, Miantana. My name's Duncan Kerslake. In my language, that's hello and greetings. Apologies, I'm a little bit crook, so I decided to take some holidays, and as soon as you take time off work, you go in a plummet. So unfortunately, I've been a bit unwell, but I was very keen to come and talk today because I think this is a really important event. And an important opportunity to highlight how we can work better with First Nations people. As said, I'm a Palawa man or a Pakana man. Pakana man will come from the north of Tasmania. So my mother's family is from Tassie, my dad's family is European. The Buxtons came out in the 1800s to Tassie. Obviously, firstly, I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of Brisbane, the Yagara and Turrbal people. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and acknowledge First Nations people here with us today. I want to acknowledge the continuous living culture of First Nations people, their diverse languages, customs and traditions, knowledge and systems. I acknowledge the deep relationships, connections and responsibility to land and sea and water as an integral element of the First Nations identity and culture. I acknowledge and thank First Nations people for the enduring relationships connecting people, country and ancestors, an unbreakable bond that safely stewards and protects the land, seas and waters for thousands of generations. In my role in Queensland Government, I'm very fortunate that I get to work in a space where I get to support my people in thriving in this economy. I'm the program manager for the Advanced Queensland Deadly Innovation Strategy, which is a $755 million investment by Queensland Government. I don't get $755 million though, which is a bit disappointing, but I do get some money to to deliver some really cool programs. So the Deadly Innovation Strategy really came out in 2017, and as Evan alluded to, I'd come from Commonwealth Games and was able to deliver a substantial result for the DG at the time, and so I was fortunate enough to be given a fair bit of flexibility to develop the Deadly Innovation Strategy. And one of my, I suppose, things that when I took on the role, I said to him that he was going to champion it, and he would meet with me regularly. So most people think that's pretty funny that a staffer in a government department would say that to a Director General, but Damien was very supportive and agreed to it, so I was very lucky. So that enabled and empowered me to be able to do a lot of really good work. So the Deadly Innovation Strategy, I've put up a bit of a presentation, but I really wanted to talk about just one component of it. I'll quickly just tap on a couple of things, but under the strategy, we really wanted to focus on a few different elements, and one of the ones that I always talk about when working with First Nations people is that you actually hear them. So what happens is, in government in particular, we're terrible at it. We go into community and we talk to people, and we don't actually hear. We sit there, we listen and nod, and like, oh yeah, this is really good. And then we walk away, but we haven't actually heard anything, and then we do what we want to do anyway. So hearing is critical, because when you actually hear people, you understand, I suppose, the challenges they're trying to deliver to you, and you understand how to do things better. And so then you're able to share, like, I suppose, the things that you have access to, whether it's programs, money, support, collaborations, partners. And to me, that's one of the things that this event's all about, is about making sure that we share the things that we have, whether it's research, whether it's educational, whether it's links to corporates. What are the opportunities that you possess that you can actually link back to traditional custodians in those communities? And the most important thing is that we activate it. We actually do something. We don't just write it down on a piece of paper. We actually get in and we get stuff going and we get things moving, which is really critical. And so it's about finding the right people to back. Yep, that's absolutely one of the things that we work really hard at, is finding the right First Nations people to work with. Backing them, helping them. When I say build capacity, it's not about building their capacity, it's about building the capacity of the business or that opportunity, because they are already doing it. They're already out there, they're running a business. They might have some, like any business person. I work in a space with Advanced Queensland. We work with some very, very smart people, and they have amazing ideas, amazing innovations, and be really entrepreneurial, but I can tell you they can't run a business to save themselves. And so they get lots of investment, and then all of a sudden that business starts to sink because they don't understand the fundamentals. They're good at what they do, but not at running a business. And sometimes that's okay. It's about getting the right support mechanisms around them, and then influencing others. That's my favourite part, like working with people, collaborating and influencing others to come on that journey. This is just kind of a bit of a wheel, but I won't talk through that. But it's basically what I just chatted about, starting at the centre and walking on the path, not doing, supporting and collaborating and walking together. But this is what I really wanted to talk about. So under the Deadly Innovation Strategy, as I said, we started it 4 years ago, and we recently went under a very extensive review, independent review from Nous Group, and the things that, obviously the program was highly successful, and we've got lots and lots of great stories that I can talk about for the rest of the day if Evan would let me. But these were the key things that we really wanted, that came out of it. And number one's moving at the speed of trust. And I think that applies to anything. You've got to build those relationships and build that trust to work together, but in particular with our communities, because we have been let down time and time again by corporates, by government, by philanthropics who make promises and then don't come back and don't deliver. Building mutual accountability. This is a big one for me. I always say to people, yep, we can do that, if you do this, I'll do that, but if you don't do that, I won't do this. And that's really important, that give and take, to make sure that you're both connected and aligned. Activating change agents, as I said, they're the big things in community, whether it's a business, whether it's an individual, whether it's council, whether it's a PBC, whatever that might be. Making sure that you find that right person to partner with and work with. And most importantly, meeting people where they're at. Don't create unrealistic expectations, just meet them where they're at and then work together and collaborate and bring in the right people and continue to move through in a culturally responsible way. So they're really pivotal for the things that we do. As said, we work across a whole range of different businesses in innovation, from agriculture, aquaculture, very much always looking at a strengths-based approach. Don't try to build something with someone that when they don't have any assets. So coming from an assets-based approach, and this again why this is a critical conversation here, because one of the things our people do have access is to land, which often means that there's mining and a whole range of other activations that are happening on that space. But what are the opportunities around that? Because quite often people are like, oh, we're going to go into a mineral exploration or mining sector, and our people, country's sacred to us, so why would we want to participate in that? But there are opportunities around that our people can participate on, and some of them will participate in mining, others won't. But there was a great example recently where a mob in Western Australia actually had gone through a process, and it was more of a farming exploration, but what they decided was the community elders decided they were going to go into the farming area and brought in an expert from outside community. And what happened was that the young people actually didn't really want to work in farming, and so they couldn't get the young people to work. But what happened was that they ended up having to bring in backpackers to actually do the farming. But then that meant there was all these new people like in town, which created all these new jobs like in the local economy, which then got filled by the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander kids that were living in that community. So sometimes the outcome that you want to have is not direct, it's that indirect outcome, and that's really critical as well. And if anyone's interested, that's the Deadly Innovation Strategy. You can check it out. And if anyone wanted to chat to me about it at any stage, I'm more than happy to have a yarn. You can connect to me through Evan. I'm obviously on LinkedIn as well. Not very responsive on that though, I must admit. That's a bit of a minefield, that one for me. But I hope you guys have an amazing day. I think it's critically important, this discussion that you're having. I think one of the things, Evan touched on at the beginning there about the future and looking at the future within this space. That's critical to what we do under Deadly. All the stuff we're doing is about creating that pathways for the next 5 generations. That's what I always talk about. It's not just for now, it's about thinking about the future and the next 5 generations of people, young people that are coming through. And whether that's, at the moment we're doing a lot of stuff in digital and tech, moving into quantum, quantum computing and looking at those opportunities. Digital, to me, is the great equaliser for our people. It's the first time we have been able to fully participate in the economy. Starlink has been the greatest disruptor that's come along in a very long period of time, and I'm sure there are lots of people in this room are using Starlink, when out on country and being able to facilitate better outcomes within your own workspace. If you're not, you should get on it. It's fantastic, I can tell you. So, but I just want to say thank you very much for allowing me to come along today. Hope everything goes really great for you all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Duncan. Whenever I speak with you, I don't always know where the conversation is going to go, but I'm always pleasantly surprised. So I really do appreciate you going into such depth today and providing those opportunities for everyone in the room to go that step further. I particularly liked your comment about moving at the pace of trust, and that's something that I'll be taking away for sure. Thank you. At this point, I would now like to welcome our first presenter for the day, Deputy Director General of Geo Resources, Sean Ferris, to the stage. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you, Evan. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we gather here today, the Turrbal and Yagara people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Firstly, thank you, Duncan, for that wonderful introduction and also acknowledgement of country. Excited to see that work there around deadly innovations. You probably saw me quickly grab a scan of the QR code. If you didn't do it, please look it up. I'm excited to learn more about that and connect with you afterwards if I can, please, Duncan. We're in safe hands today. Evan Marshall as our MC or Master of Ceremonies for today. I also just want to say thank you before I started to Evan. Evan and the team under Tony Knight have been working tirelessly behind the scenes to bring this event together. And it's great to see this morning that we're here for Digging Deeper conference of 2023 and to see so many people here in the room. In fact, I've been told there's been over 200 registrations for today's event, which I think speaks volumes around the success of these events in previous years, around sharing the great work that GSQ undertake, both in partnership with academia and industry to increase our geological knowledge of what is an important resource, our state's resources across the board. And it's certainly been a busy year this year for both the Department of Resources and for GSQ. It was only, 5 months ago now that we're in this very venue at the Brisbane Convention and Entertainment Centre for the World Mining Congress, the first time that the World Mining Congress has been held here in Australia in its history. A great opportunity for us to share knowledge around Queensland, to promote Queensland and to seek to attract investors to the state of Queensland in our resources sector. And more than 3,000 delegates attended from around the world here, and I hope that they left with a greater sense of what we've got to offer and the importance of the resources sector to both us here in this room and more broadly the Queensland community. And the fact that the organisers of the Congress chose Australia as the first jurisdiction to host, again, speaks volumes of the importance of the sector here in Queensland. So really, it's only fitting that we're back here at the Convention Centre right now to look back on what's been a busy year for GSQ. I'm sure you've all had the opportunity to see what you've got installed today. It's a great celebration of the work that GSQ have been undertaking over the last 12 months and the years before, and an opportunity for us to share as an organisation the knowledge and insights that GSQ have taken from the work that we've been undertaking. GSQ has a really important and critical role for the resources sector here in Queensland. They are the custodian of the state's geoscience knowledge and data, and as GSQ holds that responsibility so importantly and so highly, they continue to support the resources sector here in Queensland, again, through companies, through academia, and through collaborators such as those in the room. The team plays an important role, not just in geoscience, but also in attracting investment to Queensland in the resources sector by improving the global understanding of the state's prospectivity and resource potential, supporting innovation in exploration through the grants programs that we administer and run, leading the global transition to a data-driven exploration ecosystem, and informing resource planning and economically beneficial development policy initiatives, working closely with our policy team, our reform team, and other parts of the department more broadly. Important, GSQ achieves this by working for all, by making mineral and energy geoscience data and information available to industry and government through publications, maps, but more importantly, through digital data products, because that's the future. By sharing and collaborating, we improve our understanding of Queensland's resources potential, attract investment, and importantly, look to grow the industry. In fact, the Exploration Data Centre at Zilmia and the John Miles Drill Core Storage Facility in Mount Isa house geoscience data and information dating back to the 1800s. I will say that the Zilmia Data Centre is one of my favourite places to visit. We regularly hold our leadership team meetings within the Division of Georesources out at Zilmia. It's a great place to visit, great place to go and look at rocks, but it's a great asset for those in the room here and more broadly the state's resources sector. The collections include drill cores and cuttings from current and past exploration programs and samples from GSQ mapping fieldwork. I understand that many of you that are in the room here today took part in a workshop at the Zilmia EDC yesterday, which I also understand was fully subscribed, and again that speaks to the importance of that facility out at Zilmia and the value that it offers. In recent years, the Queensland Government's support for minerals and energy exploration and development sector has significantly increased in recognition of the urgency and scale of demand for essential raw materials and maintenance of gas supply to the East Coast. The long-standing Collaborative Exploration Initiative, or CEI, remains a foundation stone of the government's support to position Queensland as the preferred investment destination, with its success evidenced by exploration tenure holdings across the state being at an all-time high. As many of you know, the Queensland Government has been running the CEI in one form or another since 2007. Previously it was called the Collaborative Drilling Program and was a way to collect drill core for our exploration data centres. Currently at Zilmia in Brisbane and Mount Isa, as a public resource that people here in this room and others can use for research and better understanding our resource potential here in the state of Queensland. In 2017, it expanded to include more than just drilling and became what is now the Collaborative Exploration Initiative. Over the years, the CEI has supported 276 programs. 276, it's not a small number. That's a great level of support that the Queensland Government and GSQ have provided to the resource sector here in Queensland. And that includes the program that's currently underway. Earlier this year, we had a record number of companies who were successful in applying for grants from round 7 of the CEI program. 25 projects across the state providing up to $250,000 each, with a particular focus on finding minerals the world needs to decarbonise. Nearly 3/4 of all successful projects are focused on finding new copper deposits, because we know how critically important that is for our economy and critically important that is for global decarbonisation. Applications for round 8 opened earlier this month with up to $300,000 for activities that are technically sound and innovative. So if you haven't yet, please look, apply. This is your opportunity for a Collaborative Exploration Initiative grant. The CEI program looks to innovate, to address vital geoscience knowledge gaps and contribute to the discovery of critical minerals in Queensland. The CEI program has been bolstered by 2 new initiatives that GSQ are also responsible for managing. The $21 million Frontier Gas Exploration Initiative was announced in the Queensland budget earlier this year. The program will, over 2 years, provide grant funding to support exploration and development of new gas supply from the Bowen and the Galilee Basin. And we all know how important gas is to our energy transition or transformation. This support of $21 million into these frontier areas is looking to grow and develop further gas to support that transition into the future and to address some of those tight supply and demand situations that are occurring right now in the East Coast gas market. Applications are open now, and then they're open until the end of January of next year. So again, if you're a gas company, please look at the Frontier Gas Exploration Initiative and look to put a grant application in, please. $21 million available to support the Bowen Basin, the Galilee Basin. Another initiative that complements the principles of the CEI is our new Collaborative Development Program. As part of the Critical Minerals Strategy, $5 million was allocated to the Collaborative Development Program, which is designed to support the assessment of remaining mineralisation in mine waste from abandoned and operational mines. I mentioned just now the Queensland Critical Minerals Strategy because it's another significant body of work that the department has delivered this year in terms of the strategy, and now we're very, very busy and delivering upon the elements of that strategy. And of course, the work of GSQ, amongst others, is critical to the success of that strategy. I'm going to touch briefly on the strategy because I've got one of my colleagues here, Aaron, who will go into a lot more detail very shortly. Our ambition in that strategy is to be more than just a raw materials exporter. We want to create prosperous pit-to-port product value chains, not just to supply the critical minerals needed to make equipment, but also to have local processing and advanced manufacturing industries here in Queensland. And of course, that all starts with critical minerals. We know that the Northwest Minerals Province has huge potential to really drive the growth of critical minerals industry here in Queensland. Since 2019, GSQ has been driving the New Economy Minerals Initiative, known as NEMI. The $23 million program has been implemented over an area across Northern Australia, including the Northwest Minerals Province in the west, and extending to the coast between Townsville and Cooktown in the east. The goal of that program is to develop and support the growth of critical minerals component of the resources sector, from assessing regional prospectivity and facilitating exploration to investigating opportunities for processing and repurposing of old mine sites and tailings facilities. Just like the CEI program that I've mentioned earlier, this program is critically important to further advance the state from a resource development perspective. And these programs link directly to the Queensland Critical Minerals Strategy. Successfully implementing the strategy can only be achieved through genuine collaboration and partnerships. So you can see the team at GSQ are right at the heart of everything, absolutely everything, when it comes to growing Queensland's resources industry. So on that note, I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the amazing and dedicated team in GSQ led by our Chief Geologist, Tony Knight, ably supported by the balance of his team, all of them are here today, and if you haven't met them, please take the opportunity to do so over the day, and you're going to be hearing from many of them in terms of the work that they've been delivering over the last 12 months. So on that note, thank you very much. Enjoy the conference, and thank you.
Thanks very much, Sean. You may have already noticed agendas on the table today. We will be doing our best to stick to time, so if you're able to help us out by returning after the breaks, that would be great. And we'll be finishing around 4:30. And I'd also like to make mention of AMEC, who have a networking event on this afternoon. So everyone here today is also invited to AMEC's end of year Queensland event downstairs at the Charming Squire. So please, if you can, stay around for a drink at the end of today. Right now, I'd like to welcome Aaron Raitt to the stage. As Sean alluded to, Aaron will be discussing the critical minerals strategy. Welcome, Aaron.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aaron Raitt. I'm a manager in the Reforms Strategy and Delivery Office in the Department of Resources. So before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara people on the land on which we speak today and their elders past and present. So this morning, I'm interested and delighted to give you an overview of the Queensland Critical Minerals Strategy, which was recently released. I'll go into a bit of context, a bit of the drivers, how we got there, and its plan to accelerate growth in the critical mineral sector in Queensland. So there's a few key drivers. These drivers are global, in which spurred and gave the platform for our interest in developing the strategy. So to go through them, the decarbonisation of the global economy and our energy systems is one, fundamental driver in understanding how we need to focus our efforts on critical minerals. So critical minerals underpin various technologies, general technologies in the new economy, but also fundamentally those renewable technologies that will help us get to net zero. The demand and supply chain gap. To meet our commitments, our global and national commitments, to get temperatures through the Paris Agreement down to, I think, limited about below 2 degrees Celsius, below pre-industrial levels, and with that ambition to try to get to 1.5, the minerals needed to get us there are phenomenal. We will require a lot more mining, and there will be tension between not only the minerals needed in our renewable energy technologies to decarbonise the economy, but also all the other technologies that use these minerals. So with all the modelling and anticipated understanding of the demand that's needed, there's going to be a big demand and supply gap. And the last one is supply chain diversification. So we saw in the event of COVID-19 how easily supply chains can be disrupted. So we're at a stage where national, international governments and businesses are looking to ensure their supply chains to improve resilience. Where one supply chain goes offline, there is another there for them. So this idea of having processing or extraction focus solely in one geographical area or nation state is moving to more of a network theory where you need to be shored up if anything were to go wrong. So Queensland as a state and as a government has committed to net zero carbon emissions by 2050 with multiple renewable energy targets along the way. So the key drivers really acknowledge or reveal, disclose the need for accelerated pace in critical minerals development. And Queensland is sitting as a golden opportunity to seize this opportunity. Queensland is built on mining, it has significant endowments, has a network of established infrastructure, it has experienced and skilled workforce, and it has a robust and supportive regulatory framework. So these drivers and this opportunity came to the position where the government wanted to double its focus on critical minerals. In acknowledging this, the Premier at the World Mining Congress here in Brisbane in June this year announced this strategy. It includes 4 key objectives, 9 actions, and $245 million in investment. Its ambition is to transform the state, national and global economy through the responsible use of Queensland's critical minerals, creating sustainable economic prosperity for Queensland. So we'll see in that ambition, it really acknowledges its place in the world. It's not just an ambition that focuses on our transition, it's understanding that we have the critical minerals to supply the global transition. So it builds on existing economic strategies from the state. Builds on the Queensland Resources Industry Development Plan, which was released only in June 2022. And that plan itself seeks to build a resilient, responsible and sustainable Queensland resources industry that grows as it transforms. So in QRIDP, there was already the kernel of understanding critical minerals is going to be our next platform in which to go forward. It also aligns with other Queensland economic plans, so the Energy and Jobs Plan, the Queensland New Industry Development Strategy, all which work together to have an integrated framework to ensure sustainable growth. So I'll quickly go through the 4 key objectives of the strategy. The first is to move faster and smarter. The second is maximise investment. The third, build value chains. And fourth is to foster research and ESG excellence. So the move faster and smarter objective. So as we just spoke through the key drivers, we need to move faster to get to the Paris Agreement goals and to Queensland's own commitment of net zero emissions. But we need to do this in a way that doesn't stop or push back any of the hard work that we've done in our environmental understanding of how to protect the environment and all the progress we've made with First Nations peoples. So we've got to move faster, but also smarter. With maximise investment, we rely on a lot of foreign investment to get big capital projects up. Critical minerals is an interesting market. You would think that if there's such a big supply and demand gap, private industry will just step in and start investing big dollars to fill that void. But critical minerals is a market where it's relying on a lot of bilateral agreements, offtakes. It's an opaque market, so nation states themselves have to really ensure they've got the right regulatory and financial framework or environment to ensure there's increased confidence to invest. Build value chains. So as Sean alluded, the aspiration is to move beyond dig and ship model, but only where it's smart. We need to diversify our economy to enhance our export potential. So this is through investing and developing onshore processing and manufacturing capabilities in the state. And this is important to capture more of the value of our minerals and as it reverberates back in through the economy with well-paid jobs and higher value products. The last objective, foster research and ESG excellence, is about supporting industry to really understand the expectations that are anticipated and forthcoming. Consumers, shareholders, investors are all seeking or demanding a higher level of responsibility in how we dig up these minerals, how we support the environment and the local workers working in the industry. And First Nations, sorry. So this objective is to really understand that green value proposition that Queensland can provide to the world and really differentiate us compared to different supply markets, supply countries. So within those 4 key objectives, we have 9 actions with the $245 million worth of investment. So firstly, we have, down in the green box, established Critical Minerals Queensland. So this is a dedicated office as a centralised point for industry, investors and community, and will bring a dedicated focus to the growth of the critical minerals sector in Queensland. It is going to be established in Townsville. We've recently went through the recruitment for a lead and a director, and those appointments will be made soon. So we are going with that. We've got acting people there, and we are very, very much on the ground running with that office and implementing and working with the industry to ensure there's development in the sector. Critical mineral zones. 75 million to undertake a new focus or targeted place-based approach to the development of critical mineral projects. So this is a pretty, not unique, but a pretty focus or flagship action of the strategy, where it's looking to bring proponents that are co-located in a regional area, bring them together to really understand what enabling and collaborative infrastructure that can be built. How do we work with the community to ensure sustainable growth of that community and the First Nations peoples, to understand their aspirations for the area and how they can be included in decision making and projects to ensure that we get to a place that can provide the minerals that are required, but also ensure sustainability in the regional towns. So the intent of this action is to achieve the capital, resource and time efficiencies by working collaboratively. We've got 2 pilot areas, so one around Julie Creek and Richmond, the next around Mount Isa, in which this action will take place. 2 zones will take place, and each zone will be very tailored to the proponents in the area, the community in the area, the First Nations people, their aspirations, and the geography and any other stakeholder priorities. The second one in the Move Faster, Smarter objective is to explore remaining mineralisation in mine waste, which Sean touched on. So this is expanding or building on the CEI to understand the value in our mine waste. So this is open to abandoned mines, but also operating mines. In the spirit of the circular economy principles, we do need to start understanding what's already dug, what's already there, what's already closer to the surface, how can we tap in and use and get that value to bring that stuff to market. The last one in Move Faster, Smarter is facilitate secondary prospecting for critical minerals. Again, the same theme, looking how we can understand and go into mine waste to ensure we have, we can capture that value. So this action is about reviewing our regulatory framework to support that work. Going on to maximise investment, rent reduction for exploration. $55 million of foregone revenue to reduce exploration permits for minerals to $0 for the next 5 years. So that's in place. That started 1st of September this year. So any liabilities raised after that date for existing and new exploration permits will be $0. So that's to encourage further exploration, further investment in drill cores, etc., to understand where are our next opportunities in Queensland. Profile and promote Queensland, funding of $1 million to develop an interactive and investor-focused portal to really start to market Queensland, working on the Team Australia approach as we market ourselves internationally, but really what is the difference that Queensland have? How can we market and capture the supply chains and companies and private business that are interested in investing in critical minerals? We have delivered the Critical Minerals and Battery Technology Fund over exactly $100 million to support companies to accelerate extraction, processing and manufacture of critical minerals and advanced materials and the development of battery technologies. This fund is open, it's run through Queensland Treasury, and there's grants and there's equity portions of the fund, but this is really that financial, investment in companies to start to build through the supply chains and into those battery technologies where we can make hay in Queensland. The last 2 actions are partner with industry to build ESG excellence, so $1 million here to really understand the forthcoming, whether it's international governments requiring further reporting about Scope 3 emissions, whether it's the shareholders requiring more company reporting about how First Nations people are engaged in the process. This work will help us really start to build the capability up in Queensland to make it our value proposition. And the last is research development in circular economy and mining. So this is about building an alliance with universities and really focusing on those areas where we can improve our understanding of how we can get the extraction out and maximise the investment. So I think I'm about 15 minutes or 16 minutes. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to speak to you after the event, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Our next presenter is Tony Knight, GSQ's Chief Government Geologist. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, thanks, Evan. And thanks, everybody, for coming today. It's great to see you here at Digging Deeper. We've missed a few years with COVID, so it's great to see real faces in the audience again. It's fantastic. I thank Sean and Aaron, too, for setting the scene where not only we as Department of Resources, but as a resource sector, are heading into the future. I'll pick up on some of those threads that they used to share some insights where GSQ is heading in 2024, which will mark our 156th anniversary. That's a pretty remarkable achievement in the government. 156 years next year, so incredible. And let me use that long history to frame where we stand today. The GSQ began in 1868, a year after the major gold discovery at Gympie, that was pivotal in getting the newly established colony, in the time before Federation, of Queensland onto its feet financially. The government of the time recognised the potential for our mineral and energy resources to further grow and strengthen the Queensland economy. And the story from there marks a rich history of exploration, development and value creation across Queensland. More gold, Ipswich coal, Cloncurry copper, Mount Isa, North West Minerals Province base metals, Roma and Moonee oil and gas, Cape York bauxite, Bowen Basin coal, Strat and Bowen Basin gas, and to today, where, as you've already heard, where critical minerals offer us grand opportunity. I'll come back to that term, grand opportunity, in a moment. The GSQ has moved in parallel with those industry developments, in particular with many works linked to development of our coal and petroleum sectors. From my many years working in the Bowen Basin, I recall seeing very, very many and very high quality drilling reports under various series that some in this room may have been part of acquiring or using early in their career. They were incredibly useful, and their quality testament to the professionalism of those who involved in drilling and preparing those reports. But our role in providing geoscience support to help overcome geoscience challenges in petroleum and coal grew less over time, and those functions were ultimately disestablished. Those challenges were part of the inevitable evolution of the role and services of the GSQ, where, for example, in the past we also had a marine geoscience function. Now, weren't they the good old days? But as we fast forward to today, we, and by that I mean the resources sector, face many challenges and opportunities. The GSQ is evolving to ensure we continue to help meet those challenges and support creating benefit from realising opportunities. I think this image of our strategic direction shows well the changing nature and focus of our activities, which are very much future focused. In geoscience, our role in helping industry to be more efficient and more effective in exploration and discovery remains unchanged. But what is changing are the frontiers and search space for exploration. In base metals, the frontiers move into deeper and more difficult terrains. often matched to by an overall reduction in the size of deposits, meaning we need, as a resources sector, to find more to replace those large mines like Mount Isa, which are in decline. For government-led geoscience, our response has included large-scale and broad-ranging geophysical programs utilising both ground-based and airborne acquisition techniques. We continue to add layers of differing geophysical data types to the overall overlay of geophysics across prospective portions of the state. We do that alone and in conjunction with Geoscience Australia. A particular focus in recent years, I love this photo of the team on site, has been to grow the area of magnetotelluric geophysics, is what they're doing, believe it or not. Digging holes to put the sensors in. And that technique helps push the boundaries of discovery to much greater depths than ever before. We've also greatly expanded our work in geochemistry, and in particular hydrogeochemistry. It was very pleasing to see a major advancement in hydrogeochemistry using isotopic identification techniques in a great collaboration between government, industry and academia with our friends at the Economic Geology Research Unit at James Cook Uni and a supportive cohort of industry participants. That work stands to reduce the time and cost to conduct exploration and refine target identification, and in that is a great step forward. In critical minerals, the challenges and opportunities begin in their sheer diversity and distribution. In fact, there's not even agreement on what constitutes a critical mineral, which is, of course, a subjective term and spoken from the perspective of a dependent user of those minerals rather than a supplier. But for simplicity, let's bracket them into two classes: those used in the energy transition and in electrification in particular, and those used in a variety of technology applications that in most part serve to make our modern economy and society more efficient and industry more effective. They also have strategic importance in relation to national security. The variety and occurrence of critical minerals also introduces a very fundamental addition to our search space too, with, for example, many of them occurring as or byproducts from extraction and processing of other minerals. The exemplar is cobalt, which of course occurs in association with copper and nickel ores, which has in the past seen it end up in mine tailings and waste, given that market demand at the time was limited, did not justify a recovery during the primary mining phase. So we introduced the term secondary prospectivity to our vocabulary of searching for and seeking to valorise those critical minerals left behind, not only after mining, but also other industrial processes such as coal combustion and metals refining. The work on mine tailings and waste has given rise to a huge upsurge in assessment work across the entire future value chain. And in this regard, I must give credit to Dr. Anita Prabhakar Fox and her excellent MyWatch team, Mine Waste Through Characterisation, and my praise for the juggernaut that it has become. And let me promote the Australian Mine Waste Symposium next year at UQ. This work on secondary prospectivity is attracting international attention too. In 2022, for example, we commenced a joint program with JOGMEC, the Japanese Organisation for Metals and Energy Security. We aim to assess the potential for recovery of cobalt from copper mining wastes. That bilateral collaboration work has expanded to include search for rare earth elements on Cape York, also with JOGMEC, and more broadly, we have and continue to collaborate with US Geological Survey, Canadian Geological Survey, and similar geoscience organisations in Korea and Finland. Let me change gear for a moment by calling out all the great work being done by growth in our geophysics and geochemistry data sets and findings by a host of collaborative research projects across a multitude of topics. Not only mine tailings and waste characterisation, but many, including, for example, carbon nanotubes. Ask Dave Purdy what they are. In total, some 70 research and collaborative work programs are currently underway. And not all minerals either, with works planned by Geoscience Australia to test the Adavale Basin for its hydrogen storage potential in salt caverns. All of those projects are producing data. And as you know, we have been modernising our data systems over the last few years. and we continue today on that journey of change and improvement. It's now 3 years since the GSQ Open Data Portal went live, and its companion, the Lodgement Portal. Since that time, we've added great volumes of legacy data to our portal, extracting it from all sorts of old media, both digital and analogue, using a variety of optical character recognition and machine learning techniques to ensure we can make all historic data available to you. In the time before the Open Data Portal, our old systems, for many reasons, limited us to making only about 6% of our total data stores publicly available. Now it is closer to 100%. And our focus is moving to advanced techniques, machine learning, natural language processing, and AI, of course. We are also working to improve the completeness and quality of data reported by industry to us under regulatory obligation. Investing in improving the quality and completeness of data is not only an investment in the future, but is also an important step towards establishing a digital framework for companies to demonstrate their corporate governance performance, and in turn, proving their ESG credentials. This work around digital compliance will continue. We'll build upon automated validation and assessment, including rejection of industry reports at the time of lodgement, with aim not only to improve quality and completeness, but also to an eventual goal of digital compliance and accreditation. That won't happen tomorrow, but the world is shifting to demand greater transparency. We're developing the digital tools to do just that. These things, these credentials, speak to evidence of good provenance, that a customer and investor can invest with clear conscience in a company, and a consumer's use of products sourced from that company, knowing that no laws are broken in its journey from source to user. Evidence of reliable and sound provenance will become essential for those mineral producers seeking to supply to higher value markets like the United States and European Union, particularly via the latter's forthcoming battery passport requirements. Let me come back now to the statement I made earlier about critical minerals offering ground opportunity. It's not a new idea. And in fact, the former Queensland Minister for Mines, the Honourable A.J. Jones, said in December 1923, you can read it for yourself, talks about us becoming a manufacturing country using our raw materials. 100 years later, it's the same. You heard Sean and Aaron say the same thing today. Strategies of today replicate this. It's the last time we'll have opportunity of this scale, this grand opportunity, to use our raw materials to shape our future prosperity. The energy transition, in particular electrification, with capture and conversion of electricity via solar and wind, of transmission via copper wires, and storage and batteries of many chemistries, all speak to minerals. And indeed, the energy transition is also a materials transition. Since we cannot simply source and combust hydrocarbons to release fossil energy. Instead, we need to make those things, need to capture and use renewable energy. If we don't take advantage of this opportunity, then we will be economically left behind forever. Since unless we crack fusion energy, there will be no next opportunity, the size of the current energy transition. The role of GSQ is changing in light of that opportunity. Today, it is not only about discovery of minerals, but also about development. You'll hear more on that topic from Rick Valenta next. It is working to help government understand what is needed, since discovery alone will not be enough to bring minerals to market. We need to be advisors and advocates for change, to help steer works to overcome challenges. For example, broadening the remit of GSQ to span into understanding minerals recovery, minerals processing, and minerals utilisation. This broadening is important because we are seeing a rise of new industries in Queensland based upon value adding. For example, alumina from clays into high purity alumina, or HPA. The emergence of new companies like Alpha HPA and Lava Blue. Or of quartz, with Quinbrook in partnership with Soul Quartz having announced plans this month to build a $10 billion polysilicon facility in Townsville to help find resources of key raw materials, not only silica, but also the very pure carbon that is needed in the smelting process via submerged arc furnaces to produce polysilicon. As you can see, CSIRO have kindly developed an action plan in that regard. There's much more I could say about things GSQ are doing and where we're heading. I've barely touched on circular economy, but we are very much focused on it and what it means for the extractive sector. But I do want to call out our resources intelligence function, which has seen GSQ employ economists. It goes from strength to strength and is proving its worth time and again, and adding more value to our understanding of the resources sector. For those old hands here today, please know that the GSQ is in good shape, very much attuned to the needs of today and the future. We have very strong support from our state government, as expressed, for example, by the more than $100 million in funding we've attracted in the past 6 years, including most recent $21 million Frontier Basins Gas Grants Program, which is open for application today. To add to the many millions we continue to make available through the CEI, which is also open for application today, and the soon-to-be-released Collaborative Development Initiative. Let me close by saying, it's a good time to be a geologist to hear, as I did at IMARC conference Sydney a few weeks ago, the Deputy Director General of the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs say, I'm a lawyer, but I wish I was a geologist. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony, for that presentation. Right now, I'd like to welcome to the stage Professor Rick Valenta, Acting Director, Sustainable Minerals Institute from the University of Queensland. And Rick will be speaking on the Alliance for Responsible Energy Transition Mineral Supply. Welcome, Rick.
Oh, I brought up my thing, but I can see we can see the slides here. That's good. I'm going to put the timer on as well. So I also, Sean, find it very hard to believe that the World Mining Congress was 5 months ago. It alternately feels like 5 minutes and 5 years. But it was the first announcement of this Alliance for Responsible Energy Transition Mineral Supply that I'm going to be talking about now, and the SMI's leadership of that initiative was announced at the same time by the Premier. And so my aim in this talk is really to talk about some of the justification behind why we want to do this, and the vision for what we want to accomplish as part of it. So the current industry challenge is an interesting one, and it's very different to what it was a while ago. So when you look at what we're being asked to do, but most companies in a production sense, but also in an exploration sense, are being expected to improve their profitability and production rate without increasing their footprint. In fact, reducing their footprint would be great, and lowering their emissions intensity by whatever date the company has specified, because most major companies have that sort of specification, and hitting net zero by a certain date as well. So, and in fact, finally, doing all of that whilst accomplishing a step change in social and environmental performance, including circular economy and a whole range of other factors. So what that means is that we need to change the way we support those activities, because the requirements being faced by companies are so much greater. And I want to step back to a talk I gave 6 years ago now, when I first joined the SMI after 25 years on the industry side of the table, about pre-competitive data. You know, what I was trying to say at the time was actually talking about the inability of pre-competitive data to help us in deep exploration. That a lot of pre-competitive data was actually focused on near-surface discoveries, and tried to make the point that there was a whole change that we needed to make to deal with that, a new toolkit. But what I actually want to talk about now is the next step change that we have to make that's necessitated by the energy transition. Okay, so did I put my timer on there? I better just, anyway, we won't worry about that. So when we look at where government activity sits in the exploration and development timeline, from regional exploration to production, smelting and refining, and so on, traditionally government data has sat and support has sat at the regional exploration end. And when you look at what's been provided by that, it's a whole range of things around geoscientific knowledge, geochemical data, geophysical data, all of the great things that the Geological Survey of Queensland is doing, and other surveys in Australia and around the world. And industry, the expectation of industry is that they do everything else after that. Once regional exploration is finished and we get down to a prospect, it's up to industry at that point. And of course, what a lot of jurisdictions, including Queensland, have added is financial support for exploration at that sort of prospect exploration stage. And why have we done that? The reason that we've done that is that traditionally, when you look at exploration efforts for gold, lead, zinc, copper, the well understood commodities, that number one, there has been a great discovery focus to those activities. The target commodities are really well understood, and the value chain is pretty linear and well understood. You don't need to talk to people in a company about where they might sell their copper. It's a very well understood and well managed market globally. And for a long time, there's been relative market disinterest in sustainability at a deposit or jurisdiction level. It really just hasn't been on the radar. But what I want to do now is run through, I guess, a reflection on what I think the future state might involve when we think about our current situation. And the first thing to say is that we're not just trying to get critical minerals from primary ores, or our minerals from primary ores. We're also trying to get them from secondary sources like e-waste or mine waste. And I think various people have already mentioned the potential resource that we can get from mine waste. And since this has already been mentioned, I won't spend too much time on it, but we've been working on this with the support of the Geological Survey of Queensland, led by Anita Prabarkar-Fox for a long time now, and by the middle of next year, Anita tells me that we will have studied in detail 80 different sites around the country with a real focus on Queensland. And actually, Queensland's leadership of this initiative has now spread to a nationwide initiative. But what we're also seeing that's different from the traditional support of exploration and development is that this is not a surprise to anyone, that the range of commodities that we're looking for is completely different and much less well understood. If you go to someone and say, what are you going to do with your praseodymium deposit? What's the market? Who's going to buy it? How are you going to, what's the value chain from here? I think there's much less understanding of what that might be. And I guess to feed that, there's been a whole range of different work, and I'm going to focus on talking about some of the work that we've been involved in, both in the area of supporting exploration, but also, as has been mentioned already, in the areas of trying to come up with ways to actually do sustainable processing and extraction for the new suite of critical minerals, which is really important when you think about the stated aim of a lot of jurisdictions, including Queensland, to be an ESG exemplar for the world. So using conventional approaches isn't going to be good enough. And so what that means is that the support that needs to be provided to explorers who are trying to develop a critical mineral deposit is much more likely to extend into areas like characterization, testing, piloting, and techno-economic evaluation. Not just helping them make a discovery and then vacating the field. So there's a whole range of capabilities in Queensland to address that. We have pilot plants, we have testing facilities, hydrometallurgical facilities, pyrometallurgical facilities in UQ, but also in other universities, and various different means to carry out conceptual design of flexible flow sheets for a range of different commodities that will allow us to test and come up with practical solutions for sustainable extraction of this broader range of critical commodities. And what that results in is, I guess, a series of potential approaches for sustainable processing, as I mentioned. And there's a strong network across Queensland that can potentially contribute to that. You know, we have several universities in southeast Queensland that are doing work in extraction of critical minerals, both UQ and QUT. But we also have a resources center of excellence in Mackay that is working to help develop the workforce, and with whom we're collaborating to develop flexible processing plants as training and also piloting facilities. And strong collaborations with James Cook University in their North Australian Institute for Critical Minerals, and also our collaboration on the Trailblazer project, and also the potential for, which doesn't exactly exist yet, but I still think is something that we should be striving for, is to turn the Mount Isa region into a technology metals hub to deal with the technology metals that exist in that area. And of course, allied to that, the Queensland government has had the vision to support a series of, and one particularly prominent common user facility that will allow us to test the means at a larger scale for processing of vanadium, but also other critical minerals, including rare earths and cobalt, nickel, and so on, as we discover them. But there's one point that I want to make, and where I think this alliance can make an important contribution, and that is that you don't, there are a number of different scales you have to go through in order to come up with a sustainable processing approach. You have to start with characterization, and we have an unparalleled capability in our Queensland universities to carry out high quality characterization. But then there's a step of small scale piloting. You can't just jump to industrial scale piloting. You actually have to look at and test a whole range of different sustainable approaches before coming up with a potential approach that you could then pilot at scale in a common user facility. And of course, Tony has already mentioned, but another really critical aspect that's been mentioned in several of the talks already is that the aim of the state, admirably, is to be a strong example of ESG performance globally. That includes both I guess, constraints as to how we operate, but also certification and approaches to circular economy. And this is an area where, again, I'm going to touch on a couple of examples really briefly, where there are approaches that you can make your processing more circular, or sand, where you can, rather than leaving tailings dams, you can actually use that material for infrastructure, or actually take existing tailings, and in this case, this is a project we're doing in Latin America, but could also be done here, using passive solar energy to create coarser material from fine tailings. So, and also I'm going to shoot past through this, but there's a range of digital and training approaches. And one other really important point is that as has been mentioned by a few people, there is a great desire to develop a downstream capability in Queensland. But what we do have to be I guess, cognizant of is that our several $billion is a drop in the ocean compared to the trillions of dollars being spent by our collaborators and competitors in this area. So the point's been made to me in various different venues that we can't do everything. And so whatever we decide to do, the work that we do to support exploration and development in these areas should be coordinated with those downstream initiatives. So that really ends us up with a new picture of the range of support and activity that we want to try to develop as part of this proposed alliance that will help our exploration community to be successful in discovery and development of critical minerals project. And really the vision of that initiative is to develop a robust, responsible and sustainable critical minerals industry in the state of Queensland, working with the research and development capability of the state. I've listed some of these already, but some of the challenges that we really want to address as part of this are, not only the geoscientific support to maximize discovery, but the pathways to efficient and sustainable production, maximization of circularity, establishing Queensland as a global leader in ESG performance and harnessing the value of Queensland's analysis, testing, and piloting infrastructure. And in terms of a future state that I see, I'd love to look back and say, well, we led in changing the paradigm for support of exploration and development. We developed a new set of tools to deal with this new set of targets that we're trying to deal with, and provided the new products and data that were needed to create this critical minerals industry that we've all expressed as a vision, and that we've done the things that we need to actually show the world that we become an exemplar for ESG performance and circular economy, because there's a lot more talking than there is acting in this area around the world. So if we actually act, we'll be ahead of a lot of people. And the final thing is, I'd love to look 5 years from now and say, we're actually producing critical metals from our secondary sources, whether they're e-waste or whether they're mine tailings. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Rick. I particularly like that you brought your own timer as well to the stage. No, you've done really well. You've shaved a couple of minutes, so that's great. Our final presenter in this opening session is Steve Bowden. The title of Steve's talk is The Ultimate Geofeature of Interest, Integrating Geology into the GSQ Data Model. Welcome, Steve.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here to have the opportunity to talk about some of the data modelling work we're doing at GSQ. I've had the privilege of being able to be associated with some of the more cutting-edge parts of the way we work with geoscience information, and I'd like to talk about one of those with you today. We haven't got all that much time, so just the goal is to get a bit of an understanding of, what's in the works and how it could be of use. The title of the talk here is The Ultimate Geofeature of Interest, and I promise I'll explain what that all means in this discussion, but in essence, it's about integrating geology into the way we model our data. So there's some key concepts to cover in this talk. Might be a little bit unfamiliar. One is semantic modelling. Semantic modelling represents the relationships between properties and properties within data. And when you have that information in a data set, it becomes a knowledge graph. I'm also going to be talking a bit about this thing called geofeatures, and these are spatially bound geological components. For example, the Tullabuk Formation or the Hutton Sandstone. And the ultimate geofeature of interest, which I was talking about before, is the geofeature that matters most to whoever's using the data. It's all well and good to have samples and results, but if it all needs to come back to that ultimate geofeature of interest. And a bit of a takeaway from this discussion is if you can understand that knowledge graphs have the potential to streamline geoscientific data analysis. So I think it's probably worthwhile doing a quick 101 on what semantic modelling is. It's a fairly complicated area in computer science, so I'll just do a quick 101 on some generic type things. Semantic modelling generates computer-readable relationships and properties of things. So you have different things and the relationships between those, and you want a computer to be able to process and read that information. So a thing can be anything. That's one of the interesting parts of all of this. So there are types of things. So a house, an address, a cat, a pet name, they can all be things. And you also have specific things like your house, your address, your cat's name, like Puddles, that's also a thing. But they're specific things and types of things. And from a simple statement like your cat Puddles is inside your house at 42 Example Avenue, you can represent that in a model between these things, based on the relationships between these things. But if you want to start pouring more data, and not just your cat, but other cats, lots of different things into this model, you can start to create this so commonalities. So you have pet names, you have cats, you have houses, and you have addresses. So here you have a semantic model that describes this small little constrained area about this cat being inside of a house at a specific address. So addresses belong to cats, they can be inside of a house at a certain address. And the powerful nature of this is really based on when you have limited information to work with, the semantic model can help stitch up that world. So if you're in a situation where Puddles is inside was typed into a website and you're an internet marketing company, for example, you might think, oh, there's a leak in the roof. They must be interested in cleaning equipment. So we put up an advertisement for cleaning equipment. But if you have the semantic model backing this, then you can fill in the gaps and realize Puddles is a cat. There must be a cat inside of a house. So based on this, we'll put up an advertisement for indoor cat food. Then you get the right message at the right time to the customer. And you can sort of see where I'm heading with this. And then when it comes to putting, say, for example, we have a neighbourhood of people who love cats and they want to create a sort of a knowledge base or a knowledge graph about all the cats in the area, and they want to pat them. You need to sort of expand out and get into that knowledge graph space where you're putting lots of information in a variety of ways to capture what's happening in the neighbourhood. So from a series of statements, and you can kind of come up with these models. We're expanding on what we had before. We have cats can have names, they can be inside houses, but they've also got a breed. Their relationship with guests is recorded, and their occupant, the person who owns them, is also there. And we want to capture some information about the owner. We'll expand out to that, and also the address and whether they belong to a neighbourhood. So from here, we've got a nice little semantic model where this community can put information in and figure out fairly complicated questions, so such as which owners and their playful tabbies are currently at home in my neighbourhood. And you can try doing this with a traditional database model. The SQL to come up with that can be quite complicated. But in terms of knowledge graphs, it's a really straightforward traversal of that set of data. So when applying this methodology, or when applying semantic modelling to the geoscience information, there's a lot of potential there. So I've just got a simple example here in terms of extracting things from geoscientific text. I've got an old report here about Northwest Queensland Mineral and Energy Province from 2011. And we're just looking at, I've gone ahead and done a bit of a knowledge graph demo of this later on in this prezzo. But in terms of just this slide here, we're just going to take a look at the one paragraph. And in this one paragraph, there's a whole bunch of things that we're looking at. So there's these geofeatures, there's about 5 of them here in one paragraph. There's geofeature types. So we've got metamorphics, we've got formations. There's also relationships between the geofeatures. So overlain by or overlaying. So those sort of relationships between the features. And we're also capturing a geological event there as well, the isonorogeny. And there's geological properties within the text, so things that describe the features and create properties for those features. So in that one paragraph of text, there's quite a bit of information, and you can go into a fairly deep analysis across all information and come up with a fairly complicated knowledge graph. But in this sense, we'll just take a look and say I'm not interested in just the physical geology of that area. Say I'm also interested in minerals, mineral systems. In the same report, there's a chapter there about mineral systems, and it's fairly well structured. You've got, what I can see here is that we've got mineral system ingredients. I'm not an expert in this, but I can see we've got mineral systems ingredients. And these mineral system ingredients have specific properties, like they have a level of importance and they have a scale at which they operate. And what's really interesting in this table is that we've got mineral system, like measurable characteristics, mappable characteristics or measurable characteristics that define those ingredients. And they can come up as geofeature types or geological properties. So we want to see if these two worlds can collide. We're interested in mineral systems, we're interested in the physical geology, so let's see how that would work together. So we have a mineral system, for example, the ingredients. They operate at different scales from before, and they can have different levels of importance, and within that, there are mappable geofeature types and geological properties. And on the other hand, we've got our physical geology, where we've got geofeature types, geofeatures, and geological properties within that. And we can see some commonality here. The geofeature types and geological properties are sort of matching up. So if we were to go ahead and put together a fairly comprehensive knowledge graph, if there was a connection between these two things, that it would link up. So I've gone ahead and done a bit of a 3D model showing a knowledge graph, just as that one-page summary about the Mary Kathleen domain and the mineral system off to the side of it. So on the right-hand side is this sort of summary document about Mary Kathleen domain. That's only one page of text. So you can see all the different things connecting up. And on the left is the mineral system. One of the mineral systems. There's a few mineral systems. So with the Mary Kathleen domain, you can see all the geology in there. There's geofeature types. There are geofeatures themselves. There are relationships between those geofeatures. So there's quite a bit of information there, and you can traverse that and explore what's there. And as you add more information, it becomes more detailed. Let's see if we can move forward one. And we've also got the mineral system itself. And the mineral system is a quite interesting one because it's more of a knowledge-based knowledge graph. And as you come out from the middle, those red dots are those mineral system ingredients we talked about before. And you come out a little bit further, there are these green dots which are the geofeature types, and we have the pink dots, which are the geological properties. And what we were really looking for is geological properties or geological feature types linking up with the physical geology on the Mary Kathleen domain properties and types. And if you start to get those linkages, we can see that there's a bit of a connection there. So even from this small amount of text that we were able to work through and connect up, you can definitely see there's already a couple of connections forming. There's the fault zone there, which is connected to a couple of mineral system ingredients, and that's connected to some faults. I think the Quamby fault zone is there. And also up the top, there's another geofeature type which relates to intrusive igneous rocks, and it's connected to one of the highly desirable mineral system ingredient there. And there's a whole bunch of intrusive igneous in the Mary Kathleen domain, so you can see there's a potential interest there as well. And given that this is a visualization for human eyes to really understand, but going back to that original definition of what semantic modelling was all about, it's about coming up with machine-readable relationships between things and properties. So when we have that, you don't really need to be looking at this to come up with the inferences. You can write queries similar to what we did with the little cat network neighbourhood knowledge graph to sort of uncover questions like which geofeatures are linked to essential mineral system ingredients, or which geofeatures need more data to make a determination. So that's really interesting actually, because you'll find that when you are linking things up, there might be bits of one area which don't have enough information to link across, and that's not because they're not linked, that's just because there isn't enough information in there. And that sort of moves on to the next point. How do we go about bringing information into these geological properties and geological features? So how do we support that ultimate geofeature of interest? There's no point saying we're interested in the Mary Kathleen domain, for example. It's too high level. We want to get down to a resolution that we can act upon. So so we have our model we had here before that we were talking about, and then there's an ultimate geofeature of interest somewhere in there. And to support that, we have to collect information about sites, surveys, samples, observations, and results, and they all feed into our data model. And from that, we can establish what the geological properties are and what refine what the geofeatures are in the area. So having a system that can capture all of that and fold up into those geology-based terminologies is key to getting this to work. And that brings me to the GSQ data model. So what we have here is how we've structured our geoproperties database, and you can see how the result, observation, sample, survey, site all sort of roll up into those geofeatures and geological properties. So we're collecting data from all over the place, ingesting data, and it's all moving its way into those properties, and then we can use them to start, working it from a geological perspective rather than just a pure data analysis, and bringing that geology in closer to where the data is stored. And that pretty much covers the theory I wanted to go over. In terms of what current and future semantic modelling work is being done at GSQ, we're really trying to build maturity in this space still. So we're expanding our suite of controlled vocabularies. We've got a huge amount of vocabularies published online, but there's still more to do. And the key to getting things to link together is about having commonality in terminology. So we really want to, we're focusing on geochemistry at the moment because there's a lot of value there. We're doing some proof of concept work around geofeature modelling. So what I showed you before was just a bit of a mock-up, but we're going to more of a fine-tooth comb to really expand on that and see how that would, see what resolution we need to get things to link up. And also next 12 months, we've got a lot of data ingestion projects to bring more data in from disparate sources into our graph-ready geological properties database. And as we process that and work through those things, we'll be able to publish a lot more curated data onto the Open Data Portal. And that's all I wanted to talk about today. Check out the links there for some of our digital products. And if there's any questions, just email us.
Thanks, Steve. We're actually running a few minutes ahead of time, so if we do have any questions for Steve, we can take them now, just in the middle.
Thanks for very interesting talks. Obviously really important to get that stuff right, and it looks like a really interesting network that you're building up there, and an understanding of how to digest reports and all that sort of stuff. I remember speaking to one of the data scientists working at GSQ a couple of years ago, and there was challenges around quantitative data. So if you, as an explorer, as I am, want to, say, interrogate existing reports and say, right, I want to know in a particular area all of the copper results which are greater than 1%. Has there been any progress on that sort of stuff, and how you deal with quantitative data? Is that an issue these days, or not much?
It's still an issue, still an issue, especially coming out of reports. One of the most challenging parts of digitally reading reports is being able to understand the tabulations in those reports. There's no, we're not moving that much. Like, with recent advances in AI, we could probably expect to see a lot, faster movement in that space, but not in that respect. In terms of trying to coach the data in and farm the data in the right format and structure, there's a lot of work being done in setting up the vocabularies and foundation data structures to capture that. But for the old historical stuff, yes, still an issue, and we're actively working on it.
Yeah, great talk. Just interested if you're collaborating with the other states in terms of the approach that you're taking here, and with the federal government, CSIRO, that sort of thing.
Yep, we definitely do some collaboration, especially with GSWA. They're also embarking on a lot of these semantic modelling methodologies. So we catch up with them to discuss and share notes. And we're also working on a lot of harmonisation work to align our vocabularies and systems across the state lines. So that it's a challenging process because everyone's got their own definition of what things are in the geoscience space, but we need to make steps so we're all talking about the same thing, because geology doesn't work, it doesn't stop at state lines, and companies that operate in geoscience are operating all across the country. So there are similar terminologies, and getting an agreed sort of semantic models for how things hang together is definitely one of our priorities. And as I said, GSWA is a really good, if you want to look at us comparing with another state, that's a really good example.
You're on. Great. Thanks very much, Steve. And can you please all join with me in thanking all the presenters from the opening session? We're about to break for morning tea, which is just outside through these doors. As I mentioned earlier, please spend a little bit of time to look at the posters. Those people who have special dietary, head out through the doors, past the registration desk, and there's a big green sign for all special dietaries they're catered for today. We'll be back in the room at 11 a.m. Thanks very much.